I'm Julia Carr, and I live here at Marrick Park with my children who are fast growing up now. So it's me and Highland cattle really here, and 370 acres of land in Swaledale.
My name's Carr. I'm a trainee on the Tees Swale project, which works in Teesdale, Swaledale and all the areas in between. And I'm here because at Marrick Park, part of the project is creating high nature value farming, and the landowner here, Julia Carr, has been fantastic and a lot of uptake of various things, and one of which is in-field tree planting and creating some tree shelters and woodland belts.
So my name's Caroline, and I am the Youth Volunteer Officer at the Yorkshire Dales National Park, and I am part of a project called Generation Green, which is for a year, and I work with groups of young people who live in different places, and I connect them with people who live in the park and people who work in the park, and I sort of help to facilitate volunteering.
My name's Mahbub Nazir. I manage the project within a small charity called Good Deeds in Leeds, and it's about empowering people in general, young or old, but there is a focus on the younger generation in particular.
Do you have some? You got some gloves? Yes. Your bag. I want to introduce you. This is Hamish. He works on the Tees Swale project along with Krista over here, and Marta's our volunteer. And then you'll meet Lizzie and Molly in a bit. All right.
So today we're going to be building some tree shelters. We drove past them on the way, so it's basically just a big wooden shelter that goes around the tree. And because there's lots of big Highland cattle here, they'll rub up against anything they can find. So we're putting these shelters up, we'll dig some posts in, hammer on some rails, try to get it stuck in, and yeah, see how we get on.
Right.
But you can see the different ones. I think you're going to be making something like that today. We've got another type we tried here. We've got some netting in it. See, we put that net in there because the Highland cattle have got big horns, and they get their horns under the rails, and if you don't hammer them on properly, they just rip the rails off. So that tends to put them off a bit. They're all unusual because a whole load of these trees, which are called elm trees, died in the early 1970s when I was a young child because of a little beetle getting under the bark. There were 600 along here, and they all had to be chopped down and burned. So we've got some here that we're trying to see if they're a different type of elm that will survive the beetle if it comes flying along.
Rightio, so we're going to work on that bank there. So you see there's some white posts? Yep. We're going to put one in each of them, one shelter. But we'll do the first one all together and see how we get on, and we'll just work as like small teams on each of the corners of the posts.
Teamwork makes the dream
Anybody else got a spare? I think that's alright.
So, what we'll do is, do you want to make a square? If you want to. Right.
On the inside.
Yeah, that's it. Go on, do you? Kick it. So,
There's various activities that we engage our young people in. Mainly we use sports to kind of interact with young people, and as part of their regular meetings doing various sports, we try and develop them in many ways as possible, for building their confidence, raising their self-esteem, upskilling them, giving them life skills, and wherever possible, like groups like today, they're the slightly older age range from within the groups that we work with. Between 14 and 16 we start looking at perhaps more youth leadership style kind of development, as opposed to just youth development, which is youth leadership is a bit more focused, and hopefully after a few months or a year or two, these young people will become potential youth leaders for future youth groups. There's lots of benefits. A lot of it's to do with, you know, the physics of nature, appreciating the natural surroundings. Living in the city, we don't often get to be in green spaces. There's lots of benefits, health benefits, and when they come out and do tasks like this, it's fun. You can hear that they're having fun and enjoying themselves. But at the same time, it's kind of meaningful and purposeful in the activities that they're actually partaking in.
To just spin a square up.
So maybe move it. Yeah.
So this particular scheme, called the Tees Swale project, is brilliant because it provides us with manpower here, which means that we can get an awful lot more done in that period of November to February. So we can work ourselves here, but we can put tremendous backup here with the manpower. It pays for the fences and the guards, so the materials for that, so that's brilliant as well, and it pays for the planting. So that's, you know, another thing that's very hard to do, especially when there's only one or two of you. It's much more fun doing it in a big group of volunteers, which is what the Tees Swale project are providing us with.
Oh no, I think it's on the side.
To be quite honest, I don't feel that it does spark a love for the countryside initially. To start off with, sometimes they kind of whinge about it being a boring project, or oh no, not again kind of thing. But as they kind of mature, as they get older, especially we've had groups in the past, maybe 10-12 years ago, that have come out and done similar projects, and again they're reflecting on them at the time. They didn't appreciate it while they were doing it as much, but now that they've got kind of young families, they've got young children, they're generally more mature, and they see a huge benefit in being out in the countryside, and there's a huge reflection on the kind of activities that they did in the past. Might that be tree planting, fixing a footpath, a walkway, things like that. They realise the benefits of it to humans as well as nature.
Brilliant. All 4 holes, we'll make sure it's all sitting level, then we'll start putting the concrete in.
For me here, the most important thing is the environment. You know, I'm lucky enough to be here in these beautiful surroundings, and it's my mission not to take anything away from that, more add to it really, in terms of nature and the environment. That's very important to me.
If it slips, just think about how far it's going to go.
They don't get anything.
One of the things that I've been doing since I've been here over these years is trying to get more and more trees and hedgerows in to link the landscape up. So there's already existing hedges down, existing woodland down to this side, but there's nothing really that links it and then goes up further up. So we're trying to, all the time, trying to plant hedges and put trees in boundaries so that all the wildlife has got a chance to benefit from shelter, from food sources like the berries, and secluded ways to move around the land. And we've seen a huge increase in wildlife here in that time, so a massive increase. So our latest count was 4 barn owls, which says a lot about the land here.
Do you think it's a hands-in kind of job, I reckon?
The work we're doing here today is to try and mitigate some of the effects of ash dieback, which will have a really big impact on our landscape. So the aim here is to plant some bigger trees that are going to fill the gaps that dying ash will have in the landscape in terms of the appearance of the landscape and for the biodiversity as well.
Give a thumbs up to camera.
These end up, not this end, these ends. Does that make sense?
There are studies that have been done in the past to look at what the best way of using grazing pastures like this is for nature and the environment. And that's everything from insects, wildflowers, small mammals and so on. And some larger mammals, obviously with deer. And specifically on limestone grassland, which this is because we've got a lot of rock at the top coming down, the discovery was that the worst thing you can do is just farm sheep on the land. They nibble very closely into the soil and damage the sward apart from anything else, and they nibble indiscriminately as well. Although they don't eat what we call the white grass, the dead bits. The next best was cattle mixed with sheep, and the best was just British native breeds of cattle themselves. So native breeds would mean things like Highland cattle and especially cattle that can stay out all year. So the way in which they graze, they have a good long tongue and they swipe round the grass itself and then pull it, as opposed to the sheep which are nibbling down. So the cattle are doing, they're not taking the sward down quite so low, and then also they're heavy beasts, and if they're out all year in all weather conditions, they make little pockets in the ground with their feet. They're nice and heavy, and those little pockets are perfect for catching seeds that blow off the wildflowers and all the different grasses in the late summer. So those seeds will rest better. And there's a good environment for them to germinate and then grow on. So you get more biodiversity, that means more species, different species of grasses and wildflowers growing here. We call it a fold, not a herd, if they're Highland cows. So the Highland cattle beef is probably the best beef you could taste in this country. I think it's even better than the Japanese Wagyu beef. It's got depth of flavour, but it's also very healthy. It's got the right types of cholesterol, it's got more iron, and it's a very healthy meat to eat. It's marbled, whatever, so and it's a beautiful, beautiful flavour. So what I do here is manage my fold of Highland cattle so that they don't have to go anywhere else. They stay in the one environment. They're not ferried around anywhere else for different grazing at different times of the year. They stay here from the moment they're born until they're due for slaughter to be turned into people's dinner, really. The only time animals go off is some of the ladies. I do show some of the ladies in the county shows and some of the big shows, so the agricultural shows. So that's just a competitive thing, really. But otherwise, the boys especially are here till they're 4 years old, which is longer than many beef cattle are, because they're slower maturing, and then they just hop over the hill with me in a trailer to a very nice small abattoir over in Swaledale, and everything's very stress-free and low-key, and that abattoir will then butcher the meat as well, hang it for a long, long period of 28 days minimum, and then they'll butcher it to my specification. So, and then I get the meat vacuum packed back, labelled the way I want it to, and then I sell it on in boxes of mixed cuts to people, some friends, but some contacts, and they then have the benefit of this very high quality Highland beef.
to ask you, what is your role here?
So I'm the owner of Marrick Park, so I own the land, and well, I've got several roles in my life, but this one is to manage the land, look after the land, but rear the animals on the land and produce meat out of it. So I'm, if you like, really, then I'm in charge of everything that goes on here, but I use a lot of other groups to help me, because obviously I can't do everything on my own, so that's why we've got the Tees Swale project here, and why you're here. So as Caroline was saying, is often farmers, if they're prepared to, they can link up with lots of different groups and grants to actually help them produce from the land, but in a very natural way and in a way that benefits the environment.
How long have you done this job of owning this park?
So I bought Marrick Park in 2004, so it's quite a while now. So yeah, but only really doing this side of it for 16 years, I would say.
How was the experience been?
How was it? Hard work, Mohammed. Hard work, very hard work, but great work. I mean, there's never a day when you think, what should I be doing today? Which is great. And the wonderful thing is the beautiful countryside, as you both said. And even in the winter and when it's raining and snowing, everything still looks beautiful. So it's all in what clothes you wear, that's all. As long as you dress properly, it's the most rewarding thing to do.
What made you buy this park?
Well, I have some family links with the area, so I knew it. So it was a big step for me to come up from Oxfordshire, which is a much more built-up area, to come up here. But now I'm here, I wouldn't live anywhere else. So yeah, as long as you can find work in this area, and as you can see, there's always work to do on the land. Always work to do on the land and to improve the land. So.
Yeah, it's good work. Do you guys, either of you two, ever fancy working doing outside?
I just wanted to know a little bit more
Yeah.
about it, so that we could obviously make
To understand what it's like.
better judgment on what
Yeah.
we can do. I don't know too much about it yet, but obviously over the years and as we work here more, we'll get to know more about it, so then I could have make a better decision.
What does it feel like for you guys working outside? What's that experience been outside and working?
Well, we don't have this sort of thing like in Leeds as much, because the parks, there's not much parks in Leeds. But here, like we've been doing all this, like with the woodwork protecting the trees. It's very different to what we really do in life in Leeds. Yeah, but it is a very fantastic experience, though.
Is it good different, or is it like bad different, or is it just?
It's a good
Different, like we're out getting some fresh air. With our friends, obviously, who we've known since we were young, of course. And so it's quite a nice experience to just get out and just do some charity work in general, really. So it's just nice.
And also enjoying ourselves as well.
Regardless of money, you can pick anything that you want to do. You can pick this again.
Yes, definitely.
So,
I think
That's
also,
a big question, Mohammed.
yeah, it is a big question, but I think, you know, your age now, you can be flexible with what you do later in life, and I always say that when you leave school and choose what you want to do, never think of it as that's till you're 65 or 70. You can divide it into 3 if you want and do 3 completely different things. So having the variety of experiences at this age, building up, you know, well, I like that, but I also like that. It doesn't mean to say you can never do those things again later on.
Is there any disasters that have happened out of your years having bought this park? Like any disasters at all?
What, no, I don't think so. We haven't had any explosions. We had the odd little calf dying if there's been a problem. We've lost an animal down a big sinkhole and we took ages to find it. When the ground collapses and where the water goes underground and things like that, but no big disasters and no accidents. No, it's been a safe place to live. So nothing to put you off.
Did you manage land in Oxford, or was it just a
No.
completely new thing?
No, I grew up on a farm, but I was one of 6 children.
Yeah.
Because we had so many children, brothers and sisters, there were some that were working outside on the farm, some that were inside. I was the one with the inside helping my mum doing the cooking and cleaning and things and everything, and then I went away to do pharmacy. And I was never interested in working on the land.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
so it's what I mean. I suppose is what I'm saying to you. You do come to a stage where you remember things back in your life, and you think, "Oh, I reckon I could have a go at that." So that's
Yeah.
what happened to me. I wasn't doing it for, and 30 years. Then 30 years, more than 30 years on, 40 years on, I'm doing it. So you can chop and change, but it's a very wholesome experience, a very, very rewarding experience. It doesn't make you loads and loads of money, but then you don't necessarily need loads and loads of money to be happy.
Is
Really.
it more of the experience for you?
Pardon?
Is it more of the experience for you?
Yeah, yes, it is. Yeah, it is. And I think it's quite a humbling experience at Mohammed as well, because you can't be totally in control because of nature. You can't control everything, so you have to continually change.
Adapt yourself to the situations.
Yeah, so you can't do everything perfectly all the time, and that's quite nice. You have to bow down and find your right ways round to still try and do what you think is right.
Has anyone told you not to buy this park? Like any family members, friends?
I think my parents, when they came up to see it, because they hadn't seen it, they oh no, Julia, I think you've bitten more than you can chew off there.
Right,
But that's,
okay.
they're saying that's a red rag to a bull.
Yeah.
That was a red rag to the bull.
But when
What-
they
what-
said that, what did that make you feel?
Well, I think their concern was it's isolated,
Right.
because but it's not. I was down into Richmond in 10-15 minutes to shop. It takes a lot of people a lot longer than that. Not immediate neighbours, no neighbours, but then I've got friends, and I cycled to them as well. But when your parents are a bit disapproving,
Yeah.
you either
It does put you off a little
it
bit.
does have a bit of a, so then you have to steal. You have to be sure.
Yeah.
It makes you steel yourself and be more determined.
Do you feel like your parents have certain ideas of what they want from you guys?
Oh, definite.
To an extent.
And does it feel like you can do something different? Like there's space for you to do,
Yeah, of course.
carve
With
your
the
own
skills-
path if you need to.
Yeah, with the skills we've just learnt right now, even in the residential, the first day with you, with the fire and everything, how to make it, it'll benefit our lives in the future. And also passing it on to the next generation. And on and on and on.
Yeah. But there are also good courses for people who don't want to go, who want to work in the countryside but don't want to go full time into an agriculture degree or something like that. There's lots of day release colleges, so you can work in the countryside but just go to college one day a week, and that works quite well, doesn't it, with young people?
Yeah,
A
yeah.
lot of younger people in school.
So Lizzie's an apprentice, so she she's learning a lot on the job, so she's doing lots of different, a bit like you guys sampling stuff, but she's doing that 5 days a week, like learning different things. So it's there are options for learning lots of different skills.
So she's just doing what we're doing.
Yeah.
But 5
But
days
more
a week.
5 days a
experience.
week,
More
yeah, and she also has college on top of that, I think. But it's a way for her to broaden her skills in lots of different areas, and then she can maybe pick a direction later.